Hyello. So this idea originated when I was at my local hardware store and I found these two mirrors. Now obviously this isn't the exact mirror, but one's black and one is white. And then past that, I wanted to do something that was going to make them a little bit set out from just a regular mirror. So for that, I want to paint on it with some acrylic paint. Doesn't matter what brand it is. Not only just regular paint, but I wanted to add some texture onto it. So I used some spackling. Again, doesn't matter the brand. But to get started, I actually started off with a mirror that I think got about 2 or 3 years ago from my local, at the time, thrift store. It had some framing around it, which I didn't need for this project, so I took it off and put it off to the side, because I'll probably be using that in a project someday. And with the mirror, it did have the tag on it still from the thrift store, so I just wanted to take that off. Easy enough, all you gotta do is take a really damp, almost dripping cloth and set it on there for a few minutes. I think I set mine for about 10 minutes. Take it off, and then you should be able to get it really quickly off with a nail. Your nail, not like a nail. And then it got stuck to my nail. So for actual cleaning, I came in with just Windex. And then to prep the surface using alcohol and doing the exact same wipe down. The amount of pure concentration on my face is just like outstanding. Now onto the texture. That's a texture for people who don't understand incredibly bad accents. For this I'm going to be using polyfilla or spackle. And just taking a giant dollop of it and placing it onto my mirror. And just continuing that on until I have the general shape that I need. Smoothing out the top with that same palette knife and then coming in with a little mister with some water in it. Just a little bit of water at a time. And then using a damp rag to clean up the edges. As for the further textures in the moon, I'm spraying the back of some brushes with some water and then just creating varying sizes of, I would say, circles or oval in the spackle, which is going to give the appearance of craters within the moon. And for the extra texture, I'm using the same brushes, but the actual brush head, and just stippling that in. Mostly around the perimeter, but also a little bit between each of the holes. Because of the added water, this does need quite a bit of time to dry down, and when it does dry down, it tends to set a little bit, so every couple of hours I went back and poked a little bit more to get it so it was both indented and raised a little bit with the proper brush head, and continued on like that until it was fully dry. I will say a good rule of thumb is just to read the packaging. I'm pretty sure all spackle takes 24 hours to dry, but definitely read the packaging always. Now for the paint job for the moon, I'm simply going in with a mixture of two different things. One is going to be a paint that is actually a mixture of another two things. A very small amount of black acrylic paint mixed in with white acrylic paint and then watered down quite a bit. Then a paper towel to soak up what is left of the color. It's basically a really watered down version of paint so that it seeps into all the creases and the cracks of the moon to give a more shadowy effect, and then taking up any of the excess water and color with the paper towel, which, my god, did that ever soak a lot up. Definitely recommend this method if you do have to get into any like nooks and crannies within any clay or spackle. I did also place this mixture around all of the edges, as those would be shaded as well. I took a secondary paper towel and dipped that one in water and then wiped away any excess paint that would actually end up on the mirror as opposed to on the moon itself. And the moon mirror is done. This actually turned out quite a bit better than I thought it would, and I thought it would turn out pretty damn good. So this was the easiest one, the least time consuming, and I would probably say the most realistic. Not that I've ever, been on the moon or even slightly near it. As for the next ones, I put these two side by side because I actually wanted them to basically be a pair, be somewhat related to each other. Got rid of the plastic Dexter style, which is basically just cutting it in half and then stripping it from its body. That sounds really messed up. And then, as I did with the last one, I cleaned it with some Windex. And then alcohol, rubbing alcohol specifically. We don't want to get mirrors drunk here. Now, I did make a pre-sketch of this, which you can see on here, which is a second camera angle. So I did put pencil to paper first, and I just went on with acrylic paint. This isn't really something that I can, say step by step how to do, as everyone is going to have their own creative process. Though I will say if you happen to make a mistake, you can easily just remove it with a damp cloth. Oops! And we're back to one camera angle. Did you notice that too? Again, oops! And I'm back. Did you miss me? Just in time to do the outline of what's about to be the texture on this guy. That sounded weird. My brain just thinks of the worst way to say everything. Anyways, for this one, I not only used just the spackle as is, but I also did want to mix it in with a little bit of paint, which is how this kind of thing gets interesting. I've seen people paint with acrylic paint, I've seen people paint with like an oil-based paint and then move it around a little bit as it dries down, but I wanted to go for something a little bit more cost efficient and easy, so I mixed in acrylic paint with spackle. You could go the route of just using the spackle as is and then painting over top once the spackle's dried down, but I find that this is time efficient, cost efficient, and honestly really fun and satisfying as you mix it together. For this one specifically, I used a mix of pink and kind of like a Christmassy-ish red. I even went as far as to mix those guys together so it would almost create a rippling effect. Set that one aside to dry, and it's time to take on the next one, which again, I did mention that I wanted these to be kind of similar in the aspect that they would pair well together, so this is how I implemented that. With each cloud, I started out with a white outline and then continued on filling that in with it being a white. Once I had that done, I mixed a little bit of each color that I originally used on the last mirror, and I mixed that in with the spackle. Lather, rinse, and repeat. Very well, the most satisfying part. I placed the mixture in pretty much almost the dead set middle of each cloud, and then used white acrylic paint to just go around the entire perimeter and kind of blend it all in together and make, as I said, quite a bit of texture. Probably some unsolicited advice, but if you guys aren't doing this project almost specifically to see how the texture can work out, I would definitely recommend stopping once you have the general outline plus fill-in of the original clouds, because although I really like looking at the texture, it's not necessary. I appreciate looking at both and seeing how similar they are with the colors, but like I said, the white clouds would have been just as great alone. And we're done. I just love these, how they have very subtle similarities and how they play off each other, because of course one is as high as the sky and one is as low as the ocean. Well, in this case pond, but still. And also my koi fish. I am such a big fan of my koi fish. But anyways, that is it for today's video, and I do hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys!